What's going on, guys? Today I'm back with another hat format market watch for you guys. The last time I did one of these, you guys really enjoyed them, and I didn't want to make them super constant and kind of become a market watch channel in a sense, but I did want to, from time to time, make these types of videos. So with the NAWCQ right around the corner, and a lot of people going for the hat format side event, I figured it's time to make another one of these. And in no means am I a financial advisor. I'm not telling you to go out and buy out any of these cards. Some of them I just want to make you guys aware of the prices going up or the quantities available and things of those sorts. So definitely keep that in mind throughout this video. But without further ado, let's get into it and see what trends and things are happening in the market for hat format. Now, the first card I wanted to talk about is Artifact Durendal. Obviously, this card is very commonly found in hat format, but the one thing to note is right now there's a handful of current meta decks and stuff that are actually testing out with Durendal, whether that be later into the future in the OCG. Some builds of Canine and stuff are testing out Durendal as a way to kind of hand loop and stuff like that, as well as with the release of the new Vanquish Soul monster that's a level 5 Holly Sue. You are actually able to tech this in as well, as they're also playing like the Nash Knights and stuff like that. So we are seeing an increased price in this card. Obviously, if you don't care about set or rarity, there are these cheaper versions down here of the Ultra from the Megatons as well as the Ghost from the Past. But even looking at the original printing Ultra, we are seeing 24 listings. And if we click on this real quick, you can see for even first ed near mint, there's not even any on the front page. There's a light play at the bottom there, but the first verified near mint first ed is going to be about $6. So that is something to keep in mind. And as you see, as you go down the page, it just goes up more and more pretty rapidly. And even going back to the alties are up a ton. If you like your max rarity stuff, you can see the graph is kind of spiking. And yeah, like look at these prices. There's an unverified near mint first for about $39. There's some light plays in the 40 range, but going on to the second page to actually find a first ed near mint, we are looking at somewhere in the verified range of about $45. So that is going to cost you a pretty penny. So obviously hat format is kind of a eternal format. It's stuck in time. So if anything, if you don't really care about rarity, I would suggest going for the lower rarities. But if you want the higher rarity, maybe you want to wait a little bit just in case, as soon as the meta stuff shifts eventually. Obviously, we don't even have the canine stuff yet, so it might be a while, but you might want to hold out on that if you don't want to pay that super large price tag. Speaking of rank 5s, the next one is going to be Vulcasaurus, which only has 2 printings and is extremely common in hat format. Obviously, this is a game ender card, and looking at this, again, the gold rarity that a lot of people don't like only has about 27 listings, and looking at the original Ultra, which I think looks good, only has 20 listings, my apologies. And if we click on this real quick for the first ed near mint for verified, or just I guess in general, you're looking at about $7 now, which I think is kind of crazy because as of a couple months ago, you could get these for somewhere, I think I was picking them up around like $2 to $3. So while it might still be, considered affordable, it definitely has seen a spike in price. And looking at the graph, you can definitely see that, yeah, looking at this, that like $2-3, and they just shoot up in price. I never really like to go in terms of looking at the graph for the price wise, but sometimes you can look at it just to see the trends and stuff. And so we are seeing that uptick, and I'll click on the golds real quick just to see what these are looking like. Yeah, even these are about $2 on up to about $3. So that is something to keep in mind. And usually, it's a one of in a lot of decks that play artifacts, but you are going to want to make sure that you have minimally your 1 copy. Another card seeing price spikes because of current meta is going to be Brotherhood of the Firefist Tiger King. Obviously, there's tons of printings, as I mentioned previously with the other two cards. You know, you have your gold rares and you have your platinum secrets, if you want to call it that. What I think they were calling it platinums back then for the tins. You have your supers, but looking at the ulti only has 18 listings left, and also the original Ultra is also getting a little low on listings. I'm pretty sure this one is still pretty cheap, but if we go over to the ulti, we see that big spike there, and for first ed near mint, it doesn't even look like there's any on the front page. We have some moderates around 30 and stuff, but actually getting to, you know, the conditions that most people would probably prefer, we're looking at about $45 on up to the 50s and 60s by the end of the page. And, you know, this is another one of those cards that you just have to be playing kind of a tanky deck in order to take advantage of. But in hat format, there definitely are a lot of them. I'm thinking the 3.5 axis Fire Fist deck, the Fat deck, the Fire Fist Artifact Trap Tricks, as well as like Fire Tricks and stuff like that. So there definitely are decks that are going to play this. And again, it really just comes down to how much you like your higher rarity. I know personally I am an enjoyer of higher rarities, and a lot of other people are, but I know some people also don't care. I know in terms of meta stuff, for some reason, I like to play a lot of low rarity stuff, but for past formats, I like my high rarity. So that is something to keep an eye out on. But again, there are all of those other lower rarities, and, you know, there's plenty of quantities of those. Speaking of which, another card obviously to pair with that is going to be Tanky, and unlike Tiger King, that sometimes is just a one of in the extra deck, Tanky, usually you're going to be playing at 3 copies in whatever deck you are playing. You see there are so many different rarities, basically any rarity you want, even like the duelist leagues and stuff like that are available, and they're not that expensive. But the couple rarities I want to point out are going to be the ultis, which surprisingly compared to market price, the graph is showing it's downward ticking, but it's actually stayed just about the same. I believe if we look over here, the market medians and stuff are somewhere between like 55 and 65, give or take. And if we go down and look at the light plays, we're still looking at like about $63-ish, and the near mints are also about 63, 64. So the ulti surprisingly hasn't moved that much, but the two rarities that have been moving are going to be, let me find it real quick. They kind of all move out of place as you click on stuff, but the QCR here has really risen in price. We see only 12 listings, and we're looking at about $30 a copy. These do look very nice, but obviously, you know, if we look at when they were first released in the rarity set, they were about $10 not too long ago, and now we're already looking at, you know, 3 times that price. And then the other one that also shot up in price is the CR. We see only 19 listings here, and the graph goes up even harder on these. We see an unverified copy for about $15, but then quickly on up into 18, 19s and into the 20s. So just keep that in mind. I think the CRs, they look good, but in sleeves, they're kind of hard to see. I have a set of these, and they kind of look like supers in a way. So just keep that in mind if you are going for these. But I know with, you know, the rarity collections and stuff, a lot of people want their staples and stuff to match. But in general, there are tons of other rarities if you want the secrets look really good, and we see that there's 51 listings of those. So definitely plenty to go around. There's also like the platinums if you like kind of the more shiny silvering that the QCRs have, just not quite as expensive and a slightly different foiling pattern, but there definitely are plenty available. So keep that in mind. There's even like the prismatic secrets. That's kind of the combination of regular secret and the QCR or platinum. So definitely tons to go around, but let's move on to the next card. Next up, we have Michael, and this one was kind of interesting because there's really only 2 printings, the common and the ultra from the structure deck, but then I guess technically we do have the reprint structure decks that they put out not that long ago. Well, I guess it says 2020, but I can't remember if that's actually when I started seeing them in stores and stuff, but regardless, they're all worth money. You know, $1 to $2 each. But I think the interesting thing about this is if we click on, for example, the common is going for about $2, somewhere between like $1.50 and $3 realistically, because these are light plays and stuff. And the funny thing with that is the Ultra is actually cheaper than the common. If we click on the Ultra here, you can get it for about $1 up into $1.50, and there are plenty of quantities as well with that. So I would say that's kind of one of those wins that you have. You can get the higher rarity for cheaper, which is nice. And obviously not every deck is playing this, but there are a lot of decks that play, level 2 tuners plus the artifacts, and that way you can go into this. There's also just the Lightsworn ruler generically goes into this. So it is a card that, you should have your one copy of, and especially while it is pretty cheap, especially compared to the common. Next up, another Synchro Stardust Spark Dragon. This is a card, again, only with a few printings. We see the super rare and then 2 ultra rares. There is the Dual Devastator Ultra as well as the manga promotional one. And while they are the same rarity, they came in at a different time period, so I think the foiling looks very different on the Dual Devastator. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of the way this one looks. I can't really explain it too much. You just kind of have to see it in person. The promo version just looks a lot more crisp. And with that being said, these have actually, despite the graph showing that they've been dropping in price, and like this is kind of an example of why I say I don't trust the graph here. We see like 45 cents, 50 cents, and stuff like that, which is probably more so talking about the damaged copies and stuff like that, which I guess it says here damage too, but there's not really a way to change that. But anyways, if we look at these have actually been going up in price. We see the light plays for about $5, and we see the near mint copies. Let me try to even find one. Here's a unverified for about $8. Again, plenty of light plays and stuff, but you really want to try to get near mints if, a lot of people prefer that for it to look good. And here we see they're about $8 to $9 up into $10 a copy. And the thing with this is you also have to be careful. I've mentioned this in my previous videos. Some of the cards that see a lot more play, specifically like the promos and cards like Black Ship of Corn, or just some of the old like real playable cards like Forbidden Lances and stuff like that. A lot of people would like point at the cards a lot because they saw a lot of play and stuff, and they would get these fingernail indents. And I feel that these, when I've tried to buy them online, a lot of times do have a lot of damage. Sometimes it's subtle, but sometimes it is very noticeable. So sometimes people will put that as like near mint, but keep in mind that those would be considered like light play up into damaged and stuff like that. But you do see the promo versions shooting up in price. Even by the end of the page, we're at like $20 for near mints, though again, there are a good amount of quantities before you even get to that, but this is one of those cards that you should definitely keep in mind if you do need a copy. Mechquip Engineer is another card that just has one printing, and this one, it's not too expensive, but they have been going up in price. I remember picking these up for, I want to say somewhere around like 50 cents a copy. And now, we see a lot of light plays in the $1.50 range and quickly on up into $2. There are a handful of decks that are going to play this. I know a lot of Mermail decks play it, or even some of the Geargia decks from time to time, or really just any deck that can make a rank 3. This is a great option, just being able to protect your monsters and stuff. So as a single printing, this is another card that if you are planning to play one of those decks, I would suggest having one. There's still 66 listings, and if you look at some of the quantities on here, like this person has 11 of them, they're definitely not a card I see going off the market too quickly, but it's something just to keep on your radar. Next up, Justice of Prophecy is another card that only has 2 printings and is played as a 3 of in the Spellbook deck. And the thing with this one is you have your common and your rare, so technically you do have a distinct highest rarity. While they aren't that expensive, even though it's kind of funny that the Astral Pack common has a lot less listings, this is a card that you should just keep in mind. Some of the random older cards just never got reprints, though again, you can see that, there's some light plays for like 33 cents. And then let's just try to find a near mint real quickly. We're looking at like 75 cents, give or take. But again, there's like 3 this one has like 3 of them available, 3 of them, 2 of them. So like they're definitely around, and this is another one of those cards that unless it gets like a higher rarity, you might want to keep your eye on something like this. If you're planning to play Spellbook, obviously a very popular deck. Speaking of another card that has a distinct highest rarity, Light Ray Diabolos is another example of that. Here we do see that reprint structure deck again with very low quantities, but we have the rare and the common. Again, 151 listings. This card isn't going to be flying off the shelves anytime soon. And also, usually it's played as like a 1 to 2 of. And yeah, let me see. This is probably like a 50-cent card, if that. Yeah, there's quantities for basically 25 cents for some damaged one. Yeah, basically 25 cents for near mints. And again, 7, 5, 5. 3, 2. Like, people have these available, but it is one of those cards that just keep in mind it does have a distinct highest rarity, so you might want to keep your eye on that. Next up, Solar Recharge is a card that just didn't get a QCR printing or any kind of more recent printings, and all of them are worth a bit of money. Obviously, the high rarity is going to be, expensive, but even looking at the golds that a lot of people don't like, we see they are a couple dollars. Even the commons from the Battles of Legend are a couple dollars, and while we do see, the reprint structure deck saying 50 cents, there's only 2 listings on this one. And, if you look at the shipping and stuff, you're basically paying like $5 for a common. So I definitely wouldn't suggest that one. The Battles Ultra looks pretty good, and these ones have been going up in price, but you're still looking at about $2 to $3. So not bad, but just again, if you're playing any sort of Lightsworn engine, a lot of times they are going to be playing Recharge, or if you're like on Lightsworn Ruler or something like that, you're going to want to make sure that you have your copies of this. Next up, Artifact Beagle Tech. This one isn't really anything crazy. Again, this is just one of those cards that doesn't have the most printings, and it's not even a distinct highest rarity. The thing with this one is the Mega Pack ones are usually really low in quantities, and as we see, compared to the original that has 105 listings, there's only 24 listings of the Mega Pack one, and clicking on this, you'll see that, there's an unverified for like 33 cents, but if you want to make sure it comes in the condition you want and go with that verified, you're looking at about 75 cents to $1, actually. So, Beagle Tech actually being worth a little bit of money, but a lot of people also prefer their originals, and there's plenty to go around. Looking at a lot of this, you're still looking at about like 25 cents to 50 cents at most in most cases if you want your original Beagle Tech, and it is a card that I suggest having at least one of, as a lot of artifact variants will play just one. Some will play 2, but just make sure you have your copy of that. Another Spellbook card I want to talk about real quick is going to be Blue Boy. There's obviously, again, it's the case with a lot of different printings, but if we look at the quantities, the QCR is actually very low in quantities. I wouldn't say like very low, but it is getting low. Earlier this week, this was in the 50s. Now we're looking at about 29 listings, while the others have like 59, 69, 107, 77, and 150. So clicking on this, they are actually rising in price too. We see about $3 to $4, and as we move down by the end of the page, we are at like solid $5. And this is just one of those cards. Again, it's a 3 of in the deck, and you should keep your eye on it, especially if, you are wanting to get some of the questionable higher rarity in a case. Some people like that, and it matches with the Spellbook of Secrets and stuff that come QCR, even though, again, there's alties of this and the other, and there's also lower rarities, but this card has been on the move a bit lately. Another card that's been on the move lately is going to be Forbidden Lance. While this one hasn't super risen in price, it is starting to get lower in quantities. We're looking about 23 listings, and we see that they are about $9 on up into the $10 range, which this card had usually been, I believe it was, like the $5 to $6 range, give or take, and sometimes it'll like go up a little bit and then go down a little bit, but this time it looks like it is starting to actually take more of a spike, and it is pushing a little higher into that closer to 10 range. Here, I'll go to the second page just to see. Looking at $10, and if we get halfway down the page, we're looking at almost $20. So again, I wouldn't rush out and get these, but I would keep an idea of this card. There's plenty of different rarities of Forbidden Lance. It's just one of those things to keep in mind. Next up, Trap Stun is another card very similar to Solar Recharge that just didn't get a QCR, and all of these are worth some sort of money. I know in the format we do have Wiretap and stuff, but there are plenty of decks like the Geargia Karakuri deck and a lot of the other OTK type decks, Karakuri OTK for example, or sometimes even Madolche, some of the more combo decks do like Trap Stun, just being able to blanket all the traps and then get the chance to kind of pop off. So keep that in mind. Here we see the secrets, like really low in quantities, 12 listings, and $16. I'm sure if I clicked on that, they would be, you know, moderate or something like that. Even the supers and DTs and golds, and the other golds, all of them are worth money. And this is also, you know, Edison cards or Edison decks do play this card. So this isn't just for Hat or anything like that, but do keep that in mind that you should, you know, maybe have a set of this if those are some of the decks that you are playing. So just wanted to give a little more notice. Hopefully we'll get another reprint at some point for this. I think a lot of people just expected it and we just never really got it. One of the last cards I want to talk about is going to be Slacker Magician. This card you don't see very often, but it is played sometimes as a tech choice in any of the decks that can kind of play a lot of level 1 hand traps. For example, like DD Crows, Veilers, or if any of their engine, for example, the Ghost Trick decks and stuff can play this. Even for some of the like casual Ghost Trick decks, having cards like Soul Charge and stuff in the format just means you can easily get into something like this. And this is a card, it says once per turn, this card cannot be destroyed by battle. And when this card's targeted by a spell, trap, or card effect, you can detach an Xyz material from this card, negate the activation, and if you do destroy it, it's a 2100 defender for, you know, a rank 1, which is kind of massive, and it only has 1 printing. And if we go down to the price of these, you know, we see light play unlims and stuff for about $2, and I believe this is close to, you know, $2.50 to $3 if we try to even find like a near mint. Here's a near mint for about $2.50. But it is one of those cards that only has a single printing. There's plenty to go around. Again, 71 listings, and it's not like a card people are rushing to get, but it is one of those things that if you do want this as an option for one of those more niche decks, keep in mind it does have just 1 printing. And similarly, the last card I want to talk about is going to be Utopia Roots. This is basically just your rank 1 version of Utopia, being able to negate attacks, and then it has a benefit if it negated like an Xyz monster. This is another one of those cards that, again, it has like basically 2 printings, but it's from the same set, and it's one of those cards that has a distinct rarity difference, being the rare as well as the ulti, and these are all cheap still. The ultis, you know, we see the graph going crazy, but if we go down here, realistically, we're looking at there's like $5.50 for a copy. They do go up a little bit by the end of the page, and if we look for the next near mint, we're looking at what, like $8. So it's not even like the craziest thing, but we are seeing a slight spike in that, and it is just one of those super niche cards that if your deck is a little more rank 1 focused, which isn't that common, this is just one of those cards you might want to keep your eye on. But anyways, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like on it, comment any questions or videos you want to see in the future, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell to get notified anytime I put a new video out, share this video with your friends. Hopefully I could show you a couple cards just to keep in mind for the format. And if you guys want to see more of these, definitely let me know in the comment section down below. Or if there's any cards that I didn't talk about, again, I wasn't trying to go super in depth. I just wanted to point out a handful of key cards for this video. But anyways, guys, I will see you in the next video.